Welcome back to episode 5 of A Journey Through the History of Papua New Guinea. My name is Kemelo Gima. Today we will journey back more than 100 years to the late 1800s, around the time that we call the colonial era, when New Guinea was being divided up by European colonial powers. This map shows how New Guinea was divided up in the 19th century. First, in 1828, the Dutch took the western part of New Guinea, and in 1884, the British and Germans divided up the eastern part. Our story has two parts. One part is about how warlike tribesmen from Dutch New Guinea, called the Tugeri, used to travel in their canoes along the south coast, across the border and into British New Guinea. They attacked and killed people in any villages that they found. The other part of our story is about how, because of these attacks, changes were made to the border between Dutch New Guinea and British New Guinea. Did you know that the western border of Papua New Guinea was not always the same as it is now? When the Dutch divided the island, the border was a straight line all the way from the north to the south, just like it is on this map. It was marked at 141 degrees east from top to bottom. This map shows the border as it is now. Note how the border bends, where it follows the Fly River for a short distance in the middle. And as well, south of this bend, the border has also been changed. It has been moved slightly to the east. In the story that begins now, we will find out why these changes were made, and we will see what this had to do with the Tugeri headhunters from Dutch New Guinea.
Our story begins in 1888, when William McGregor, the first administrator of British New Guinea, arrived to take control. Soon after he arrived, William McGregor visited the western region of British New Guinea, shown here by the arrow. To his surprise, he discovered that many of the villages along the coast were empty. This was because people had moved away to escape the attackers who came in canoes from the west. Along much of the coast, up some of the rivers, and on many of the islands, McGregor found that the people were terrified. He knew he had to protect these people. He had to do something to stop these attacks. On this map, the arrows showed that the Tugeri travelled from their homeland in Dutch New Guinea in several different directions. Those who travelled east into British New Guinea arrived there during the northwest monsoon season, between December and April. Sea conditions in this season allowed their canoes to travel long distances. They attacked villages as far to the east as Mawata, near Daru, about 250 kilometres from the border. Of course, the Tugeri warriors had no idea they had crossed a border, or that a border even existed. But to the British and the Dutch, the border was important, because it marked where their territories began and ended. The Tugeri headhunters attacked villages on the coast and on islands like Boigu and Saibai. They also travelled up rivers such as the Moorhead and Waikusa and attacked any village they found. The village people had little defence against such fierce attackers who came in large numbers, often 300 or more at a time. They destroyed whole communities and villages were abandoned. This photograph shows Tugeri warriors in their distinctive canoes. Note how these vessels had no sails or outriggers. Instead, the warriors used long poles to propel themselves through shallow waters. Armed with bows, arrows, and sharp bamboo knives, the Tugeri struck suddenly. They were headhunters. They took the heads of their victims as trophies. Anthropologists say their headhunting was linked to their religious practices and were conducted as part of their initiation ceremonies for young men. They also kidnapped children because their own population was falling, and this was a way to increase their numbers. MacGregor tried to stop the Tugeri from coming, but his small police force was not strong enough. When he asked the Queensland government to help, they told him to talk to the Dutch, who were in charge of West New Guinea. But the Dutch had no officials close to the border, and they refused to help because they said there was no proof that the Tugeri raiders came from Dutch New Guinea. MacGregor soon found another problem, to do with the border. The border between British and Dutch territories was not easy to find. It was not marked, and there was no way that anyone on a boat as they sailed along the coast could tell when they were passing from one territory into the other. It was impossible to put up a marker that could be seen from a boat, because along the coast it was mostly mangrove swamp. When MacGregor was searching for the Tugeri, he did not know when he had crossed the border into Dutch New Guinea waters. He was worried about this because it was illegal for him to travel into Dutch territory without permission. The border problem was solved when the Dutch finally agreed to cooperate with MacGregor. In 1893, the Dutch sent an official named J. Bensbach, and he joined MacGregor to investigate the region. They found a river that entered the sea just a few miles in to British territory, east of the actual border. They named it the Bensbach River after the Dutch official and recommended that the border be moved there because it could easily be seen from a boat at sea. Both governments agreed and the border was moved. As you can see on the map, this change meant that a strip of land was taken from the British and handed to the Dutch. The Dutch had gained about 725 square kilometres of land. To compensate the British for this loss of land, the Dutch gave them in return a piece of land, where the Fly River moved briefly into Dutch territory. This created the loop in the border that we see today. In 1895, both governments formally accepted these two changes, with the border being shifted in two opposite directions, as shown here. The two areas of land that changed hands were of roughly equal in size. Moving the border to the Bensbach River was a help to MacGregor, who could now see where the British border ended. But this did nothing to stop the Tugeri from crossing into British territory and attacking villages. The Dutch tried to stop them by establishing a police post near the Tugeri villages in 1892, but the Tugeri warriors attacked them and chased them away. MacGregor finally decided he would have to take action himself. By 1896, MacGregor thought his police force was now powerful enough to face the fearful Tugeri fighters. In May of that year, commanding 2 ships, accompanied by 2 whaleboats filled with armed New Guinean police, MacGregor sailed west to search for the Tugeri. Sure enough, MacGregor and his police found the Tugeri warriors in their canoes on the Wasikusa River, not far from the border. MacGregor ordered his police to attack. The Tugeri were taken by surprise and overwhelmed by the Papuan policemen. They scattered into the jungle and many were killed. MacGregor captured 48 canoes and numerous weapons. The surviving Tugeri had to walk all the way back to their homes. MacGregor left in 1898. He thought he had stopped the Tugeri from crossing into British New Guinea, but he was wrong. Every now and then they continued to make raids along the coast and up rivers. They were not finally defeated and stopped until several years after British New Guinea had become the Australian territory of Papua in 1906. The Tugeri made their last raid in 1913, when they again crossed the border into Papua and attacked villages up the Morehead River. The Australian in charge of Papua, Lieutenant Governor Hubert Murray, finally put an end to their raids. He established permanent police patrols along the Morehead River and on the coast. These measures worked, and finally, after years of living in fear, life returned to normal in the region. This brings us to the end of this episode.
And so the Tuggery attacks were brought to an end, even though it took a long time to stop them coming. People along the coast were happy that they no longer had to keep on the lookout for canoes coming from the west. Also, it is interesting to know that our western border was not always like it is now, and that it was changed all because of these headhunters. Thank you for watching part 5 of A Journey Through the History of Papua New Guinea. Join us again in our next episode when we will talk about a young Papuan man whose name was Ukari. His story takes place during a dark period in the history of Papua New Guinea when village people were taken away to work as labourers on sugar plantations in Queensland. It is a story of suffering and bravery. I look forward to seeing you then.